Well, then let me see. Okay. I think that looks good. Hi, how you doing, Roxalana? Yes. Sure. That's no problem. So, let's see. Now, okay, so what's happening? So, I get the yes. Nope. So I'm not doing. Wow. System. We've got a problem here. Why do you do it? Does this make any kind of difference? No. So, okay, so we know now that's not going to work. So we have to go back. New computer. Yeah. It's just that the system here is not able to do this computer. Something is wrong. So that's just not now. So, really steady. Really steady. So, let's go to the dog. Let's start with the dog. Let's build it from there. Yes. This would be that's okay. Great. I understand. Can work with all of those things. And it looks like the budget is holding. Nice. So let's get that position. Open this up. Bring this. We'll leave that for now. Okay. Leave that for now. And then we're going to go to YouTube. Do it this way. As long as that's going to hold. very least, we'll have that. We'll have that. Right? We don't want that. We want this. Exactly. And you should see. Exactly. So, just notice over here. And over here. And we'll mute it. Good. So now it is good. So let's get our camera position here. And that way we can see the notes. But how about something like that? Better, better, yeah. Maybe just like that. Yeah. Okay. But probably come in a little bit. So if I do that, that's not live. So refresh there and get the picture. And then the code is and then we kill that. Yeah. Okay. So then we have put that here, and over there. We could potentially do this, right? Yeah. So work with these. That goes there, and then this is what here. I don't know. Yeah, that's working. Good. Bring the browser back. Maybe go up there. So essentially.
Okay, so suddenly things are now just working.
What's that?
Things are now just working.
No, but I'm working around. It's just, I'll tell you in a moment. Okay, all right, so let's just, every time I that will not click back in, will it? Yeah, exactly. That computer does not want to do that, so let's just start here. Excellent. Okay, hello, Cosmos. How are you today? Let's see who's out there in the cosmos. Zeal, Shamim, can you hear me? It's Lon from the podium. Let's see. Try this. Hello, Cosmos. Can you hear me? Zeal? Excellent. Can you hear me nice? Excellent. Okay, so we're going to leave that here. I'm not going to touch that. Just be safe. Just getting some final checking here. That way I can end. That's all right. So we're going to leave that off. But the problem is the configuration. So I have to build it from the dock. Yeah. So we'll start with the Toria. And then we put the stream in here. And the stream is holding. And then we bring in the space station. And we can hold that here. Our bandwidth is okay. It's okay on YouTube. Right. Okay. So we're getting close to launch. We're just getting. As soon as I touch that, I'm going to lose that, and it won't come back. It doesn't want to come back, so I have to go and rebuild it. So once I do this, once I've got that up there, I'm going to leave things as they are. I'm not going to touch anything right now. Okay. Not even the dock. Well, yeah, but the problem is then I'll lose the. It doesn't matter. Okay, if I go into the live chat, I'll lose that. But anyways, let's just hold this for now. It's always a real balancing act, a high wire act in this class with getting the tech to work properly the way it should. However, most importantly, can you hear me in the cosmos? Gurnam? Hi, Gurnam. Can you confirm that you can hear me? Okay, Zeal? Yes, great. Okay, good. So you're not a ghost? Excellent, Gurnam. I have had ghosts in classes. They're there, but they're not there. And I think what they're doing, some students, is they're joining the class to get some participation marks, but they're actually ghosting the class, which means that they actually appear, their planet shows, but they're not there, and they're never there. And then they post a question on the discussion post that has nothing to do with the class, and they're trying to get the participation marks, and that's called cheating. So we don't want that, and I'm onto it. Okay, so that's good. And let me just see now what else is working and what isn't working, because I will. Good, good, Gurnham. No, I think I know you are, but I know there are students who are ghosting the class, and I can't. I have 221 students or something, and I'm really trying to track this, but I can't track them all. Um, Anyhow, I don't want to get critical and discouraged at the start of a class. I like to be positive in the classroom. So let's just make sure everything is good, because we've got a major workaround today. As for bringing Olive in full screen, I think we'll just have to leave Olive in the smaller one for now, because it's going to be too complicated. And I'm just going to I'm going to hold this. But actually, Olive, you're able to get into the live chat, right? Since you've joined?
Yes, yes.
So, you know what we'll do? Oh, and I see Kevin. Good, Kevin, if you're there. You know what? Just to be on the safe side, not yet, but I may have to give you things to put into the live chat. The reason is that as soon as I enter the live chat, I lose my whole configuration up here.
Okay.
And then I have to. So that's another workaround for the live chat. Okay, great. Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Okay. So just hold on. We're just about to start. And I will do this.
Let me actually ask one question about this room.
Sure.
What is with those walls being doors? What is up with that?
The swinging doors?
Yes. Is it supposed to be able to let you just explain how many people can participate in something, or like?
Yeah, in a way, it functions as that. Also, the doors to swing allow us to open up to the atrium,
Okay.
and let people just come in and out. But also, it does expand the classroom. This room has a limit of 100, but sometimes when we have bigger events, people are part of the event sitting in the atrium, and they're actually connected to the classroom through the open doors. 100 people is the fire hazard limit. And actually, I have to talk about that in a moment because of an event next week. So, okay, let us start. Everyone, welcome to our Friday afternoon journey through the human story. And this is Short History of the World. And I have found another workaround today with a loaner computer at the moment. So it is working. We are streaming on YouTube. We have our video conference working, and that's good enough. However, there are things I can't do today, and I will tell you about that. But today's class, essentially, in terms of the content that we're going to explore, is called Humanity's Stain. And essentially, this is all about slavery, mostly today. There's a very important force in the human story that has been there all along. And today we're going to explore it through what happened after this idea of freedom and liberty began to emerge as a important force for the modern world, uh, looking backwards, of course, to the Athenian Golden Age. This new old idea of democracy and freedom began to grow, but actually it didn't grow enough. And there was still something else that humanity had to deal with in the years after freedom's power. And I call it humanity's stain. which is the transatlantic slave trade. But it's bigger than that. It really becomes an exploration today of why slavery has been such a fundamental part of the human story, going back to the earliest civilizations, and how during the transatlantic slave trade, which I will explain today, we began to abolish institutionalized slavery in the world. So, in a way, today's class is very dark in the sense that we're going to be touching on some really grotesque and perverse parts of the human story, which is the constant, widespread use of institutionalized domination of one civilization over another to essentially use the dominated as slaves. And this is the dark part. And the better part is that we're going to figure out how to end it as well in this period of time. And so I'm going to get to that. I just wanted to let you know that because of the continuing technical issues here that I'm constantly trying to fix, and it's very difficult, today I'm limited by the fact that I have a temporary computer, a loaner computer, right now that I've had to learn how to use this morning. And the result is I wasn't able to actually load my PowerPoint presentation into this because the loaner computer does not come with an application called PowerPoint, if you can believe it. Most ones do, this one doesn't. So I went to load my PowerPoint, taking it from my external hard drive today because I had to wipe all the data from my other computer, which is being fixed. And anyways, it's a long story. The point is, I'm essentially going to have to deliver the lecture to you very, very old school, which is that I'm going to just stand here and I'm going to talk to you, and it's going to be off my toes, which is not a problem. I love to talk, and I do believe that language is the most important thing anyways. But there are images and there are important pictures and even videos that I wanted to share with you today as I go through this, but I'm not going to be able to. And in the end, maybe it's not such a bad thing, because some of the images of the transatlantic slave trade are really gruesome and just awful. And so maybe it's better that we don't see these things. But I do want to issue some kind of trigger warning to some of you who may find talking about something that really shows the worst of humanity. That's why I call it humanity's stain. This is a stain on the human story, slavery, and our kind of long-standing attachment to it in history. And even though we're going to come and end it, institutionalized slavery, in the 1800s, we never really are going to end it completely. Because if you look at the world today and you look at something like human trafficking, for example, you kind of see the same phenomenon there. But the transatlantic slave trade is there's nothing like it in the human story in terms of the legalized, accepted, institutionalized, industrial scale slavery in the world. We don't see that anymore, but we see something similar to it in human trafficking. But anyway, so I'm going to get to that. I'm going to start that, but I want to tell you about something else that's really important that's coming next week in the classroom. But first, do you have any questions? Is there anything you'd like to bring to the class's attention? Anything that is on your mind? Anything you see happening in the world today in terms of a current event or two that maybe we want to touch on in terms of its historical significance? You're welcome to mention it. Olive?
Once again, how we started this semester off. Russia is again collapsing with now yet another leader revealing that he's basically lost all control of the country, and the military leadership is trying to take back power and secede from the war they're actively in.
Which country are you talking about? Russia or Ukraine?
Russia currently is falling apart.
Ooh.
They've lost multiple layers of their electrical capability. They've lost multiple rates of their oil industry. Countless different oil refineries are gone because they have just allowed so much to be destroyed that Ukraine has now been capable of intersecting not only their anti-aircraft functionality, they have lost just
Wow. Okay, let me stop you for a sec because this is great. Let's first, I think we can start something here. Okay, so this is all very good. First, I want to get a scribe. We'll do our onboard in a moment, but I want to start a slide called Current Event today, and let's just talk about the war in Ukraine for a moment in terms of what you just said, because I need to also ask you something. Who is ready to get over there on the board and be our important scribe? Kevin? Go for it, okay? Come and get the pen, and just if you can write at the top current event, okay? And we will do the attendance shortly. I have a note here for it. Let me just first ask Olive a really important question. Olive has just given us some great information, but is it true? Always an important question. So where'd you get all of this information about Russia? We think, according to him, seems to be losing the war, has had its resources, its oil refineries and electrical system possibly compromised and seriously damaged. Let's find out if this is true. Okay? But while you're looking for it, okay, and I don't want to, I'm only, whenever I put a student on the spot about the source, please know that I would do this with any student. I do it with myself, okay, Olive? But it's really, really important that when we bring in information for a real discussion, that we know it's real. What a time we're living in. I have never, I don't know how many years I've been teaching, since I left a career in television, film, journalism, and for 30 years I was doing that. And I've been doing this for about 15 years now. I have never faced a semester of marking where I am literally looking at student work, almost every single discussion post and assignment, and going, did this student really write this or not? I mean, I've never done it to this extent. Are my students real or are they not? It's like the strangest. That's why it's great when you come in person, because I have a sense of not only that you are a real person in flesh and blood, and you're not an avatar and you're not some kind of other thing, but I also get a sense just from the oral, the way you interact, that this is a student who doesn't lie. This is a student who's not trying to cheat. This is a student who really is writing what they say they're writing. But Kayla, right? Kayla. Yeah, Kayla. It's just too time consuming now for me to collect all of those. But I used to. No, you're right. As a matter of fact, I almost thought this semester that instead of having any assignments or any writing, I was going to have just oral examinations. So I would sit a student down in front of me and I would ask them questions to see what they really know. And they wouldn't be able to look at their device, use Grammarly, use ChatGPT, etc. But too many students. I can't do it. But you know what? In Italy, I hear in the universities in Italy, they are now starting to go to only oral examinations because of the concerns around students cheating so much with AI. Anyways, yes.
Okay, so I thought I was following more than YouTube going on this, but my primary source has been a YouTuber called The Business Basics. They've been using a lot of live action feeds from the active war
Good, Kevin. Yeah, get this down. So what's the source is Live Action Basics?
Live action feeds from combat drones, tanks, visors, and a fair amount of it has actually been recordings from.
Okay, well, let's
videos.
hold on a second, because just live action feeds, just in the last few weeks, we've had to deal with apparently a artificially created musician whose work and music got to the top of the charts in the United States, and her music video was so authentic that people thought it was a real person, and it turned out to be fake. So can I just ask you, how do we know that these live feeds are even real? Is there a person attached to this that can be contacted via email and has a biography that can be checked, so we know this is real video coming from a war zone? This is really, really the kind of critical mind we need now, right? Yeah. Yeah. So just this week, I was sitting in the atrium and preparing classes, and I heard a few students talking, and they were just chatting, and I overheard one student say to the other, I just think it's so entertaining and fun, she said, to just put disinformation out there. Like, it's entertainment. It's like somebody goes and puts a stink bomb, when you were in, summer camp or whatever, somebody puts a stink bomb out and everybody's laughing. Well, it was the same sort of thing. And as I heard this, I thought, so is this part of the entertainment now of younger people, that they're putting stuff out there that they know is not true, just to see what happens because it's funny? And maybe it is funny. Avi Rose. Yes. No, it's okay. Keep going. Well, it's yes. Yes. Go ahead. That's great. No, if you want to take a pen, Olive, you can write as well. And actually, at the back, you can even be writing over there today too. But we'll get going on that. All right. So, yes. Yes. No, it's not an exaggeration. If let me just stop you for a sec. It's not, only because I want to make sure we stay on course. You're absolutely right. And I just want to say two things to this. First, there is a lot we can talk about today in terms of AI and its damage. But I also want to make sure in the class that I give a balanced perspective always and look at how we can use it well. But you're right, and I'm afraid that some people are now using AI even as therapists. They go to the AI to vent, and the AI gives them things to think about and do. And some of the things the AIs have been doing is telling these people to go and kill themselves. And they have been. And there have been quite a number of suicides that we're now having to deal with. And the parents of these children are now suing OpenAI for somebody has to be responsible for this. But that's the dark part. However, raise a hand if any of you are aware that there are children now that are using it as therapists, and some of them are very vulnerable and taking their own lives. Yeah, I mean, okay, good. Sorry, good. Go ahead. Yes. 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 Well, this is just part of, again, something we have to be able to talk here about as much as possible, but I have content I have to give you as well. But I would say that an important note for Kevin to put in there that perhaps you already sense from this class, but I'd like to repeat, is you are a generation of humans who are having to deal with some very profound ethical questions going forwards around the responsible use of machines in our lives. And I hate to say this, and I don't want to put any more on your shoulders, but if you're not prepared to take on this responsibility and understand how to use these machines responsibly, the world is going to be worse off in the future. Your children will be, and your great and your grandchildren. And so please try to become smarter, try to become emotionally more intelligent, get educated, know what's going on in the world, and understand that what your professor is telling you is not just an old man or your father or a grumpy old professor trying to tell you about darker, difficult things. It's about your professor who understands the human story and knows where we're at in this moment in history. The machines are accelerating in the way that they are part of our lives now. And people are taking advantage of that. You have to be aware of that. And finally, do you know how to use these machines well? Because AI is amazing in terms of what it can mean for medical science, transportation, engineering, flow of information. But do you know how to not abuse these things? That's a hard ethical choice. And you're the ones who are entering the world, So, guys, wake up if you're not already awake to this. I think you are, but thanks, Kevin. Great. Kayla? Well, it already is. I mean, there are companies now, for example, Shopify. I think it's a Canadian app, Shopify, very successful. Its CEO recently, I think in the last 18 months or so, this was widely reported. He walked into his office after some deliberation, and he said to his team, "How can we tear everything apart now and make sure that going forwards we become an AI company?" And then he proceeded to lay off people. Well, Kayla, it's a great, great question, and I don't have an answer for it, but the fact that you're asking it shows that you're thinking. And the fact that you could be asking that question and having the kind of wisdom and resilience that you have means that you will be able to answer that question in a way that's going to help make you ready to deal with things. But if people are not asking those questions and they don't have some resilience and they haven't suffered a little bit and toughened up, or then they're going to get really overwhelmed with these complicated things. These are huge dilemmas for humanity. Think of where we might be in 150 years if we keep going at this rate. How do we get the balance right? It's always about the sweet spot. Do you know what I mean by sweet spot? In everything in life, it's always like, where can you find that right? How do we get the balance right between the machines and the humans? It's going to be an ongoing thing for you in your life, guaranteed. Anyways, great. Okay, so I'm going to move on from current event, but let's just make sure that this source will say for now, for the sake of, out of respect for Olive, I'm going to say that this is a trustworthy source. Is it? We don't know for certain, but
You can actually contact them. Their YouTube does specifically send you right to their Gmail account. So
and is there a person that you can send the Gmail to, or is it just a kind of a generic Gmail address? Automated? Well, yeah. I mean, it could, I would even go so far as to say, Olive, that it may be that that website, that YouTube channel, is an algorithm put out by the Ukrainian government as propaganda to demonstrate that they're winning the war against Russia. Personally, I hope that happens, but that's another thing, you know. But that could be propaganda, Olive, and it could, but anyways. So we should move on. I think you all understand the point I'm making about this. Is it fair? Great. Okay. So next Wednesday, there's a really big event happening here in this classroom, and I want to tell you about it. I think I mentioned it already. Did I touch on it? I have? Okay, so then I won't belabor it, but I want to just see now if there's any of you that would like to register for it. There is an Eventbrite registration. I know you wanted to come, right, Kayla? So unfortunately, I can't access it right now, but if you go onto ChatGPT, let's use it well, and go ask for DC Talks, Global Entrepreneur Week. What should come up is the class page for that event, the page with the guests, and there's also an Eventbrite registration link to register for it. And my understanding is there's already 116 people that have registered for it as of today. What's that? Okay, it would be on the Durham College website. Okay, so email me if you're having trouble finding it. But you may have seen it advertised around campus in the last few days. DC Talks, Global Classroom, 10:30 a.m. At any rate, I'm told that we already have 116 registered, and this room can only handle 100. But probably 50% of those people won't come. So I'm sure there will be space. Okay. So I'll just leave it with all of you that if any of you want to come to that event and you would like me to design a second assignment around it for you, then just shoot me an email, okay? And I'll make sure after class you get the information, okay? But it's going to be, I think, a great event. I just actually did a tech test today with one of the guests in Hawaii. Yeah, and he was it was 5:30 in the morning in Hawaii, and he was going to go out to the beach, and he's got a business down there. And I told him I want to come walk along the beach with you right now and watch the sun come up in Hawaii. Wow. Wednesday morning, 10:30 a.m. right here. Anyways, email me, and everyone in the Cosmos, you heard that. You know where you can find out more information, right, Burnham? If you need to get any more information, you can just email me, right? And here's my email. No, I don't want to put, would you just write in there, contact Lon about May 19th event? and I'll give you my email in a moment, and then we can move on.
Hold on, that's a
What?
little bit
Too much? November 19th. What did I say? May. Thank you. Okay, everybody. So November 19th, that's next Wednesday.
I started, like, road typing in 2019
Okay.
too. I was like, oh god, wait.
Good. Okay, so then add, nice, Olive. Just add lon.appleby@durhamcollege.ca. So lon, LON dot Appleby, APPLEBY at durhamcollege.ca. Way to go. 5 out of 5 for him, participation. 5 out of 5 for him. Let's see what else you guys could be doing in this room to get 5 out of 5. We could get more note takers in there.
Do you know
Way
the
to go.
Applebee over at the Wiki campus?
Do I know the which?
The other Applebee over at the Wiki campus?
Is there another Appleby?
Yes,
Oh,
Margaret Applebee.
oh, okay. I should know her.
I was gonna say.
Okay, I'll make a mental note. And thank you, Olive. Okay, yeah, sure. All right. Let's get down to the most important thing. And actually, before I forget, let's take a moment to do the on board. Okay. So could you all just go over, put your names there? Let's get this out of the way. Then we'll come back and start Humanities Stain and regular.
No.
This one. Oh, you're gonna do some notes?
Yeah.
Go for it. I can save those too, and I can even put them up here with a cord. So that's Kayla. Kayla, go for it. Absolutely. And I'll bring a cord to you later, okay? So we can put it up on the board. But for now, yep, start doing Kayla's notes. We're gonna get Kevin's notes, Kayla's notes. We've got on board going, and Gurnam, Ava, Shamim, and anybody else, please put your full names into the live chat now. We're just doing on board, as you can see behind me on the board. And I'm not going to move or change anything right now. Thank you. Do any of you have any questions right now as the others are putting their names onto the board? You can see your names being written behind me. I have a few moments to speak directly. Okay, good question, Ava. The last assignment is going to be in the final week, or the I should say the early December. I'm just now going to be this weekend putting the due dates and the instructions for the second assignment and the final assignment. So please check DC Connect on Monday, and all the information will be there, okay? I mean, we're into week 10 right now, you know, and we're getting close to the end. So that will be on DC Connect on Monday, and I'll make sure Monday, A2, A3. Yep, time is flying. Excellent. What else? Zeal, did we have anything we needed to talk about? I remember there was something that you had emailed me about.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm gonna ask to you. Like,
Oh,
about
okay. Now you're live in front of all the students. Is that okay, or would you rather be private about this?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's okay.
Okay. Well, do you want to speak now, or would you like to talk later?
Yeah, we can talk after the lecture. That's end of the
Okay.
lecture.
Great, but that's good that you're sharing your microphone, and then we've got audio here today in the speaker.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Zeal, good. So just please remind me at the end of the class, just stay in the class when we end, and then
Okay.
we can talk, okay?
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Well, that's why the speaker is now working with this computer, but not the... Okay, great. So while you're finishing up, I think I can essentially get going, and we have Kayla as well, who's taken a pen, and I can actually a little bit later, I take my HDMI cable and I can connect that up here. So we could have Kevin's notes going here and Kayla's notes going here, and it will look exactly like I always imagined this, like a big think tank. A big think tank, a big global think tank. So how do we talk about this moment in time? Well, why don't we start with where we were last week. And who was the person last week? There was a figure that emerged in our story after the conquest, at the start of freedom's power, who really represented a kind of what we would call moral conscience. Gubriel? Nope. He was the one who kind of discovered the Americas, this what we would call the Western Hemisphere, everything west of the Atlantic Ocean, but he was not a moral conscience for humanity. There was something that happened, yes. Bartolome Las Casas. Remember Bartolome Las Casas? Yeah, exactly. We're reviewing right now, but essentially what I would like you to know is that there have been these individuals through the story this semester, going all the way back to perhaps you could even say Abraham, the original prophet, the father of the three great monotheistic religions in the world. If you remember, Abraham was the person who left his city-state in Mesopotamia about 5,000 years ago, and he went to seek a kind of promised land, a land where there could be a new way, a new kind of society in which there are no god kings. There is only one God above all of us, and that's the one we should worship. In a way, that person, like Bartolome Las Casas, represented this moral conscience. It's a very important term in our story. These humans that have entered our story at various points, we might call them the free thinkers, the ones who have challenged the prevailing idea of power and governance and have sought something better for humanity. Something in them drove them to seek a better way for all of us, and we've often seen these figures emerge in religions. So Bartolome Las Casas was somebody who saw that we had to change the way that we were thinking of those that we conquer, if you will. They are absolutely human beings too, and that we cannot be going forwards thinking that there are superior civilizations, superior peoples, and non-humans, if you will. That thing that drives people to do that is called moral conscience. And we all have it. Well, in this chapter of the story, Humanity's Stain, what we're about to see is that even though there had been these individuals, like Abraham, for example, like Bartolome Las Casas, like the religious figures like Moses or Jesus or even Muhammad, the prophet, the great prophet of Islam, even though there had been these important figures in the story, there was a system of abuse in all societies that had not been changed very much since the beginning of civilization. And that is the idea that there are groups of humans, whether they are those captured in war, whether they're humans perceived as somehow inferior in your own society, who are not really human and should be doing the work for us. They should become our property. They are essentially no more than animals, really. And this gave rise to a system that has been practiced by every single culture. This is the depressing part. Every single culture has practiced this in some form or another, and that is the idea of enslavement or slavery. And in spite of these figures emerging as I've mentioned, the free thinkers, the ones driven by moral conscience, we had not yet solved this great problem of slavery. We will see a little bit later in today's lecture and in the coming weeks that there is a society that's going to emerge called the United States of America that will be the first nation in the world that will adopt a constitution that recognizes the equality of every human individual. But even the architects of the American Constitution, people like Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin or Alexander Hamilton, wonderful stage play that's been made of him, still on Broadway, I believe. Hamilton, are you connected to the, the great Alexander Hamilton? Even these individuals, as progressive as they were slave owners. Thomas Jefferson, for example, one of the great architects of the American Constitution and early American president, was not just a slave owner, but actually had a child with one of the slaves who worked on his plantation. What I'm trying to tell you is that even though there has been this force in the human story of liberty and freedom, of people driven to bring something better, slavery has been so deeply embedded, it's been very difficult to uproot. To give you an idea of how bad it got, I'd like to talk about the transatlantic slave trade, because there probably is no phenomenon in the human story that represents just how perverse and how inhumane humans can get than this system that enabled the people of the European world, like Columbus and others, who came over to the Americas, and you saw what they did to the indigenous peoples. They are now going to set up a whole system across the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, that will enable the European powers, France, Spain, England, the Netherlands, Portugal, these countries all on the western side of Europe, to come over and take the resources from the Americas to make the products in Europe. And this is how it's going to work. So I'm going to keep doing this, just me standing here without any images, I'm afraid, but I will try and help you by using my hands a little bit. So first, map of the world, okay? There should be a map of the world up there, but I can't put it up there right now. Olive?
If I share my screen, will I be able to show images that you are?
Maybe, but let's not play, because I'm just worried I'm going to lose this and the live stream. It's just like, this is just being held together by the, a tiny hair right now. It all could fall apart the way it is. This is a case sample of complexity. Complexity is when you have many parts together, but the thing is so fragile that if you just hit one thing, remove one thread, the whole thing unravels. That's the amazing thing about the world we live in. Our machines are so complex, but go find a big plane, and as soon as a bird flies into the propeller, the plane is going to crash, and everybody. So complexity means power, but it also means fragility. Does that make sense? It's called the paradox of progress, William McNeill. The more complex things get, the more connected they get, the more fragile and difficult and problematic they get. I bet you never thought of it that way. That's why we have to be very sensitive and very smart in how we deal with our machines. And I'm pretty sure that's true, because I've read many examples of that and I know it's true. So, okay. How many of you have actually studied the transatlantic slave trade? Have know what it is? A little bit? Okay. Really, huh, Avery Rose? Great. No, I'm glad I can help you. Online, because I usually assume that this is something most of you know something about, but now I'm going to help you really understand something that's going to first depress you a lot. Okay, so get your medication. I'm making a joke at my own expense. Okay, so I've had my own problems that I've had to deal with, but I've dealt with them. Okay, so after the Europeans began to figure out how to come across the Atlantic Ocean following Christopher Columbus, 1492, then in the 1500s, through into the early 1600s, there was a great number of individuals from different countries like England, um, certainly Spain, and others who were sending over their Columbus-like explorers to figure out how they could conquer more of the Americas. And it eventually emerged. Eventually became clear to these conquerors that there were some great resources here in the Americas. Cotton, for example, could be grown. Tobacco could be grown. Sugar was in great supply in Haiti, for example. It wasn't just the gold and the silver that Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand had been after and others, but there were all sorts of other resources in this part of the world too that became very attractive. How could these resources be extracted from the land? How could they be shipped back across the Atlantic Ocean to London, for example, or to Madrid in Spain, to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, to Paris or Germany or any of these other countries? Well, this was the beginning of the great transatlantic slave trade. Now, I'm going to sort of draw this for you because the transatlantic, it's a triangular thing. You could even draw a triangle if you want. Kayla, a triangle, we'll go triangle like this, okay? So big triangle. It's called the triangular transatlantic slave trade. And at the lower part, the lower right-hand side of the triangle would be Africa, the west coast of Africa, Sierra Leone, or the slave trading nations of Western Africa. It's going to be terrible. There's going to be all these ports with thousands of black men coming. Then, on the left side of the triangle is the Americas. And then at the top, we'll call it England. Because the principal builder of this slave trade were the British. And the British, who sent their explorers to what would become the United States and Canada, are going to be fundamental in creating the governments and also the rebellions that are going to play out in Canada and the United States. The United States, you have to remember, was built from British rebels. And Canada was, well, I'm going too far. Let me just stick to this. My point is that the British, the United Kingdom, could never have become the great global, first great world empire without the transatlantic slave trade. So how did it work? Excellent, Caleb. Well, essentially it worked something like this. This was all legal. There were all men in Britain who prided themselves on being successful slave owners and successful slave traders in Britain. And they may have been based in a city like Manchester, not too far from London. And what these slave traders would do in Manchester is they would take their ships and they would fill up their ships with liquor, with guns, and other things that they could bribe. They could bribe the tribal chiefs in Africa with. They would come down the Atlantic coast. So it's that side of the triangle now. Britain coming down to the west coast of Africa. And they would get off their ships, the great ships that were made in England, highly developed ships that will become part of the foundation of the great British Navy. And they would take their materials and then we'd go as far as they could into the African interior. And they developed relationships with the tribal chiefs of some of these small and not so small communities of peoples, including in what will become the greatest provider of slaves and products in the Congo, right in the middle of Africa, the Congo. Are any of you familiar with the novel Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, the great novel that documents? Are any of you familiar with a movie called Apocalypse Now by Francis Ford Coppola? Outstanding movie based on Heart of Darkness. Well, Heart of Darkness is about a person who is being taken into the deeper and deeper into the Congo, and he sees the terrible cruelty of not just the slave trade, but how the white man perceived the black man. Now, if you thought it was bad with Columbus, it in a way gets even worse now. The white man, the white European, he brings his culture, his sense of, power in the world and the goods, and eventually a relationship develops between the white slave owners and the tribal chiefs. And eventually what we start to see, and you've probably seen movies of this, but I could give you details now that are so grotesque, but at least you'll get a sense. We start to see long processions of young black men being brought from those nations, including the Congo, shackled together in twos or threes so they can't escape. Like if one tries to escape, he's dragging the other with him. So they're all, two or three are shackled together and they're being moved, sometimes naked, sometimes not, and they're being walked to the west coast of Africa where the ships are waiting for them to put them onto the ships. And we are talking about millions. This went on for something like 250 years before it will be abolished. What existed on the western side of Africa in these nations were all of these forts, these dungeons and jails and holding cells, that would be not even fit for mice or cockroaches or any kind of animal. But there, these men brought from those nations by their tribal chiefs. Let's be clear. There is really no victim and monster in this. Pretty well everybody's a monster in this, except for the slaves. But the tribal chiefs who took the whiskey, took the liquor, took the guns for themselves as bribes, and brought the slaves to the coast for the British, surely they are monsters too. But they were black. They weren't white. So corruption and rottenness exists in all forms. Even among the Inca, I could tell you more about the Inca as not being necessarily victims in the conquering of them by the Europeans, but in a way they were. But the Inca themselves had terrible civil wars. And Atahualpa, just before the conquistadors had come to Peru, he had defeated his brother in a civil war, cut his brother's head off, and then used his skull, put some gold in his skull, poured some blood into the skull and drank that blood as a sign of domination over his own brother.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So the cruelty is off the charts. Picture along the western coast of Africa all these ships waiting at port. And instead of waiting for goods to be brought to other parts of the world, they're just ships waiting for the slaves to be put into them, to be brought to the Americas. On these ships across the Atlantic Ocean, it's almost impossible to really describe to you just how inhumane this was. But I will give you one small example. You probably know the song Amazing Grace. That is a slave song that was originally composed by some of the individuals who were being brought from Africa. It's a hymn, Amazing Grace. It's almost a prayer of people who are wailing spiritually for help that never comes. On these ships that were captained by the slave owners and slave traders from the white world, from England, in the bottom of the ship, the men would be squeezed together, naked and shackled, and they would have to lie like that in this suffocating space for the entire trip. And every breath, every move, everything that they did, every tiny bit of food that they might have been given, anything had to be, of course, approved by the captain who would be watching over their movements. So cruel was this that when you protested, if you even so much as expected a little bit more bread or to share with another beside you, naked, terrified, not knowing where exactly you're going to be going, you would be removed from your shackles, you would be taken up, and a doctor or a dentist would come to you, and your teeth would be removed. All your teeth, like that, just like that. All removed, no anesthetic, nothing. And food would be shoved down your throat to make sure that you would be fattened up and ready to become somebody's property when you were arriving in the Americas. That you would not be able to resist your food with your teeth. You would have to eat your food. The terrible food that you were given or something, but if you were protest, anything, you get your teeth extracted just like that. And then the food is pushed down your throat. There are many other things I could tell you, but something like 10 to 15% of the men in these ships, when they were able to get free from their shackles, jumped overboard and killed themselves. Suicide was not uncommon at all. This transatlantic trip was a business. This was not underground. This was not the dark web. This was real, and to go into the business as a slave owner or slave trader was a matter of, for many, a source of real pride because you could make a lot of money once you arrived in the Americas. And from there, the new plantation owners, the British or the Spanish or others who had stayed in the Americas and had built estates and plantations, sort of like Bartolome Las Casas had done until he had that crisis of faith and decided he did not want to be running this kind of orchestrated abuse of the indigenous. There were many who were not like Las Casas. They built estates, they had the slaves picking cotton, picking tobacco, and picking all the other resources that would then be sent back to England, where people could sit and have a nice cup of coffee in the cafe. The cotton that they would pick, the slaves would pick and be sent back to Britain, would be used to make textiles and clothes for the British.
Your screen,
Yes,
your screen just went black for the ISS.
that's okay. That's fine. It's still, it's dark because the ISS is,
Oh,
it's going, but it's okay. It's still live. We're okay. You know what matters is that's the critical thing. If we lose the YouTube live stream, then we've crashed. Like up in the top left, but good you're aware.
okay. Sorry about that.
Are you getting an idea of how this system worked? The triangle up here, Europe, Africa down here, across the Atlantic here, get the resources, slaves, make the resources, find them, extract them. Those are put back on boats and sent back where the products are made for the Europeans and the British. Is that making sense? I'll come to Avery Rose in 2 seconds, okay? How did we end this? This is very interesting. This is going to end. It's called abolition. We might say that this is the more inspiring part of the story. The fact that we had this institution in which something like 15 million, it's estimated, 15 million African men were trafficked from Africa to the Americas to extract the resources for the goods and products to be made in the European world. The fact that this system was created, the transatlantic slave trade, tells you something about how the roots of this system go deep into the story of human societies. We never could have had this system had there not been slavery in the first place. You can't just create this kind of institution unless there's already many other instances of this previously. And this is where we saw in so many other societies, going all the way back to the early Mesopotamian societies, whether it's India, China, the Americas, we would see slavery. But now, the world is going to confront it. And it starts with something quite remarkable. It starts in a place called Haiti. How many of you are familiar or know where the country Haiti is? Raise a hand. Haiti. It's an island. It shares with the Dominican Republic, right? And that island was originally called Hispaniola. Today, we think of Haiti as a place of terrible suffering and war and conflict and abuse. And that's in large part because we had a hand in creating it in the way that we have dealt with Haiti. But once upon a time, in 1801, for example, Haiti was the site of an unprecedented rebellion against the white conquerors from the European world, and particularly Napoleon Bonaparte in France. The Black Haitians staged a revolt against the French who had come there to conquer them. And here is another remarkable figure, and I'm going to help you spell this. Okay, somebody you probably have never heard of, but I'm going to give you his name. He's the leader of the Haitian rebellion. His name is Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint Louverture. And I'll spell it for you because he's another one of these remarkable figures in history who's going to help us abolish slavery. T apostrophe O U I S S A N T. Toussaint, and then his surname or his last name, L''OVERTURE. Toussaint Louverture.
Oh Lord.
He had the courage and the intelligence to organize the oppressed of Haiti. And in what is surely one of the great conflicts in the human story, so mismatched, so outnumbered by the French, he pushed the French out of Haiti. And this is Napoleon, no less, who was trying to essentially bring his sort of system to the American world, but it will be Toussaint Louverture and the oppressed of Haiti who will form their own independent Black nation. I suspect none of you are aware of this, which is too bad, but that's why you're in this class, because this is important history, because it tells us that it is possible. And we see this time and again for human beings to confront the worst in humanity and change. Well, without telling too much detail about what happened to Toussaint Louverture after he was triumphant in this conflict and he was part of the establishment of the first independent Black nation in the Americas that had been so oppressed by the Europeans, without having to go into detail about what happened to him, because in a way he too was susceptible to corruption too. It's a bit like the French Revolution. The revolutionaries gain power, and then when they come to power, they turn out to be just as brutal as the people they were confronting. At any rate, there were people in Britain who were listening and who were aware of what had happened in Haiti. And these were people in Britain who had a moral conscience. These became the movement of abolitionists. An abolition movement began to develop in the British world and the European world of people who were similar to Bartolome Las Casas and others who said, we must do something about a system. We cannot carry on this way. The people of this world, whether they're indigenous, whether they're Black, whether they are whatever, they are just like us. They are human beings deserving of the same rights, deserving of the same dignity. And it was through their work, the abolitionists, that eventually the British government, and I think it was about 1850, will actually officially abolish the institution of slavery. And we will see that the slave owners and the slave traders after this will now become people who are marginalized by their own, people who are considered criminals, people who are considered unjust. And eventually, the institution of slavery will begin to be dismantled. We will begin to see the United States rising with its new freedoms and sense of equality in the world. There will be a civil war that is about to happen in the United States, the American Civil War in the 1860s and 1870s, around the same time that slavery was abolished. And in that Civil War, the United States will be fighting over slavery internally. The North and the South are going to fight. And the North, which will win that war, will then abolish slavery in the South. So the world was now beginning to kind of shift. We were starting to see an understanding that human beings have to understand that when we go forward together, as humans on planet Earth, as we become more connected, as we mingle more, interact more from different cultures, we have to recognize that every human being demands that their dignity be respected. That every single human, to be human, you must feel your sense of dignity, your sense of specialness. And if that is not respected, then we cannot live together. We cannot go forwards together peacefully. This is called freedom for all, but it's not an easy thing for humans to do. It's not even easy for you to sit in this classroom at times and be able to look at everybody in this room right now in your waking moments when you're really thinking and go, well, this is Owen, not Olive. No, that's Owen. No, and this guy Lon, I don't want to be taught by a Jew. Who's this black guy sitting here? Send him back. Who's that Muslim over there? It's not easy for us to do this. But what are we going to do if we don't? This is what we were being told by the abolitionists and others. Wake up, humans. It doesn't matter what you think of him. If he says he wants to be Olive, not Owen, that's his dignity. It's important to him. We must respect it. Let's go forward together. That's no threat to me. I'm no threat to you. This black man, that Muslim, this guy, it's no threat to me. We're all humans. We all want dignity. Let's move forward. This is what was happening to humanity. Isn't it remarkable that it took us so long to get there? I hope you know why I said these things. It's not to offend in any way. It's all clear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I can see my dean contacting me. It happens from time to time. What the hell are you saying in the classroom? But it's okay. Students are okay. So I'm going to stop and conclude. That's humanity's stain is the idea that we had it within us. Thanks to a few people, and I'm just introducing this to you. There's so much more. We had it in us to do better. We had it in us to change. We have it in us today. You have it in it as a human to change for the better. It can get better. Okay. Now, terrific notes. Let's stop for a minute. And what do we need to address? I can go to Olive in a moment and Avery Rose. They will have lots to say. I know that. It's good.
Me and David Rose actually last week were talking about a deleted scene from a movie that was actually really set into a portion of what we're talking about today.
What's that?
Pirates of the Caribbean, correct?
Yes, we want to bring now in. I had that note. Sorry, I didn't look. The pirates and the profiteering because okay. So good. I'm glad you brought that because Avery Rose had brought this to us last week. Well, why don't we do something in a moment? Maybe the two of you can come here together, and I'll go back there, and we can explore together a little bit of this dimension to the transatlantic slave trade, which is that on the Atlantic Ocean, you had these criminals who were essentially taking advantage of the slave trade too. But the idea of piracy as well goes back. Even Julius Caesar at one point was actually held on a pirate ship early in his life before he then went to Rome. Piracy goes far back in human history. But why don't we take a moment? But first, you can come in a moment. We'll talk more about it. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask or say about this idea of humanity's stain? and why I've called this chapter Humanity's Stain. Or you may have something else you'd like to add about this topic we've explored today. Okay. So then I think what we should do is instead of going into groups, because I had the little table set up today to do a little bit, I think it's better that I think you guys come up, and why don't you come up and make sure you're standing in the right place, and why don't you help the class understand a little bit more about this phenomenon called pirates and profiteering. Pirates and profiteering. And I will just introduce it by explaining that there probably is no greater crime for humanity than when one human is financially profiting from the abuse of another human. I'm not sure there can be anything worse than that. When you are literally financially profiting from the degradation of other human beings.
Are you all right if we move a couple things here?
Well, let's not really, because it's so
Okay.
you can move this.
That
Okay.
should be enough space.
Okay.
For me to
Don't
sit
touch that, because that's the whole. I can watch, make sure the light doesn't crash here.
No worries.
And,
That's all I need. So I'll step in.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about this phenomenon called pirates and profiteering.
So
And go ahead.
the actual. Do you want to explain what the scenario the question you were asking?
Well, it was. I'm trying to find the right words.
Is that, if anyone wants to
Good.
add to that, what they're going to say, please feel free to go up to the podium. And we'll
well-
discuss it this way. I'm a student now. Okay?
Well, I guess I've just always been fascinated by the idea of pirates versus privateers. There's even an exhibit about it in Montreal at the Museum of Archaeology and History, where there's, I guess it's because it's been part of our popular culture for so long. I don't know. I just find it fascinating, and it turns out that they were a part of Humanity's Stain, as you said.
Yes.
I don't know the full differences, and I'm sorry if I get this wrong, but privateers were kind of like pirates, but they were employed, so to speak, by nobles and royals to literally steal from other countries' ships. While pirates, I believe, in my opinion, are more freelance, since they steal for themselves. Which, I guess, and like you said, they were likely part of the transatlantic
They were
slave trade
definitely
as
part of the
well.
slave trade.
Maybe even the East Indian trade companies. Well, as we know through the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, I don't
Yes.
know how much research went into those movies, so I
Right.
don't know the full how historically accurate they are, but it still gives an idea of the time of what in the scene that Olive told me about when we were talking about after class connects to this. In this, do you mind if I?
Yeah, of course. I can set up the video. It is a. Oh,
Are you going to show a video?
yes.
Well,
I'm,
I'd love to show
We'll
one. Let's-
try.
it just, I think they
Well,
crash here.
well,
actually,
well,
do you mind if I?
Go ahead and try. And
well,
it
while
crash.
Olive tries to work out the technicals, I'll at least
see.
tell you what the scene is
Yeah.
about.
And I'm going to try and get her notes up there too. So you keep going, okay?
Yeah,
Keep telling the class.
unfortunately, this was a deleted scene from, I believe, movie 3. I might be wrong, where
Oh, sorry.
Jack meets with a representative from the East Indian Trading Company, telling him that years ago he was supposed to deliver a cargo, but he's liberated it instead. And Jack said a very good line, which connects to this lecture: "People aren't cargo." So Jack.
People are cargo.
So Jack was actually, if you can believe it, was one of the people who was supposed to take part of the slave trade, but he didn't, which in a way makes me wonder, were there people like Jack who who thought this was wrong, but they
Don't
didn't?
run the video yet, okay?
Yep.
Because just leave it up there, which is excellent. if you run the video, I may get hit with copyright infringement,
Okay.
and then I lose my. But just
Okay.
leave it, because we get the idea. People aren't cargo made. The idea of people being cargo is exactly what the slave trade was about, and what we want to overcome in the human story. That's humanity's stain, when we think that other people are our cargo. So just describe, as you're doing, which is great. Just describe as much as possible the scene, okay, that you're doing. But if we run the video, I think this thing could become problematic. So just go ahead, okay?
Do you wanna go?
Of course. This is either a 15-second scene or a 4-minute scene, depending on how much detail you want. This is Jack Sparrow speaking to one of the British commanders of a sector, speaking as he is talking about a prior event to which why the Black Pearl actually got destroyed. They are talking about Jack Sparrow is being scolded for not supplying a select series of cargo to a area where Jack Sparrow specifies people are not cargo, and it sets the entire scene to explaining why the Black Pearl is such a black ship, because it got destroyed due to him failing to do his objective. And another extremely dark part of it is the crew of the Black Pearl are the slaves of that shipment. Each of these slaves were killed for being released, and they went with the ship, and their souls are now connected to the Black Pearl and will forever be part of what Jack Sparrow exists to be.
It also just brings up a question, like, were there people like Jack in history
Yes.
who didn't want to be part of the slave trade, but they had no choice? Like, it was either their job or their livelihood, but they knew it was wrong. Kind of like how in the previous lecture, the King of Spain and Bartolome, the people who we don't hear about, but had ideas which we today would think as modern.
Yes.
So it just makes you wonder, were there people against this to begin with before abolition came into play?
Well, I think that there's a lot there to unpack. It's very good, but the critical point here to understand about humanity's stain and slavery, profiteering and piracy, is it often revolves around resources. So the Black Pearl, is that
Yes.
what they're after?
That's
No,
what
the Black
ship-
Pearl
that's
is the ship.
That's the ship. What do they want? What are they trying to get on the ship? Is this, they have slaves on the ship? They have
Yes.
slaves on the ship. Where are they going in this ship? To
They-
what part of the world? Like, where's the ship
They
going?
never actually specify where this cargo
they
was,
never
because
say.
this is a completely deleted scene, and they never really explain to what this shipment's going to.
Yes.
But it is specified that he took them to a separate location where he was found, and the British took the ship down. So
Okay.
it never reached the location it was intended to.
Sure, but my point for you to understand, it's very interesting about this example that you've given in popular culture, and then to sort of open it up to the bigger idea of slavery and exploitation, is that often these ships are going to places where they can take a resource from that place and then use that resource for their own purposes, even if it means they're harming the people in that part of the world. I'll give you two examples of this, one very contemporary, one a little bit older. The older one. When the British began to realize that the Congo had so much ivory in it from elephant tusks
Okay.
or rubber from rubber trees. You know, rubber comes from tree, right? They then made sure, and the Belgian did this even more egregiously. They went into the Congo, they used the same method of bribing the tribal chiefs, and using the slaves to help them extract the rubber so they could use that to create tires for the carriages that the horses were pulling. The next thing, ivory. Do you know what the ivory became once it was extracted from the Congo back in Britain? Billiard balls. What? Piano keys. Today, the Congo, incredibly rich, naturally rich part of the world in terms of its resources. Cobalt. Cobalt is a mineral
Are you serious?
that is used for, I believe, batteries.
Yeah.
Batteries. Oh, take a look at the cobalt mines in the Congo today. And the young men paid virtually nothing who go deep down to extract the cobalt that then is shipped back to us so we can have our nice batteries. This system of extracting resources around the world for our benefit still continues, but the slavery part is not as institutionalized and as intense, but it's still there in some form or another. And I think that what you're giving an example of here is just something to me that we have to explore, which is that ship is going somewhere. That ship is doing something. And the question you may want to ask yourself after today's class is, how much of what I'm wearing right now, my jeans, my shirt, my hoodie, how much of the materials in my motherboard, in my phone, comes from somewhere else in the world and has been extracted from there and manufactured somewhere so that we can live a better life? Are the people that have extracted the dye or created the dye that is used for my jeans, are they being paid well?
Wasn't there a recent issue with them, like 5 or 10 major brands being revealed that they were
Go on, Olive.
basically using
Exactly.
child slavery or child labor to create their products?
Bangladesh. We see this, for example. We've seen factories collapse. Joe Fresh,
Thank
one
you.
of the Joe Fresh, had the same issue with a factory in Dhaka in Bangladesh that collapsed. The ceiling collapsed. They were
That was the one I was
producing
thinking of.
their, I'm not sure what it was, but it was for us, our consumption. We have to be very aware of this system, humanity's staying. The way we abuse others, take from others in order for our own consumption. Maybe that has to change more and more. We changed it with abolition, but we still have a ways to go. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Are you understanding that? Yeah.
Which makes it a
Yeah.
shame that this scene was deleted from the film in the
Yeah.
first
What?
place.
And why was it deleted? Do we know? Or?
Honestly,
I
I
don't know.
have no
Yeah.
idea why, because it would put so much more impact to Jack Sparrow himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't such a good scene.
And again, it connects, even though it's long since passed in these events. We still need to learn about stuff like this,
Oh,
and just cutting it out or whitewashing it.
Yep.
I understand that it's a very dark topic and it makes people uncomfortable, but at the
Yes.
same time, we need to know about it. Getting rid of it is not gonna make the problem go away.
I want to expect that the reason would be is I need to figure out what the age rating for Pirates of the Caribbean is, so I to see what the setting they're expecting is. Pardon? Thank you.
Okay.
AKA Disney can go shove itself.
Okay.
Don't say that.
I'm sorry, but I have
Good.
to.
Okay, let me stop for a
Good, yeah.
second because we only have
But
a few
I
minutes
see
left. I
what
want
you
to
mean.
review
Okay, I'm
and
sorry.
figure out what the
It's all right.
takeaway is today. We're going to do this together, okay? So you can go back, but guys, thanks as always for really stepping up and sharing your great brains with us and to help us go deeper with this. Okay, this is an important part. I know that we're at the end, and probably all a bit tired, but let's try and figure out. Look at this. I just went and touched
What
this.
the?
I can get it back. Okay. As long as the live stream is still going, the board is now tired. But I think I might. No. I think I know what to do. I think I know what to do. Just a second. I think I can. I'm going to show how technically savvy I am here. I can do this. Look at that. I just recovered.
What's your hit?
Magician's special recipe. So, okay, those of you in the cosmos, if you're still on your planet, I would like you and everyone here to help Kevin and Kayla, who've been terrific writing away on their slides. Yeah, this is great. Just let's see how this goes. Do a separate slide, both of you, and let's see how they interpret it. Okay, takeaway. Okay, Kayla's takeaway and Kevin's takeaway. Okay, Kayla's takeaway and Kevin's takeaway. And I'm gonna I'm making this up as I go. I think this could work very well. Let's just give Kayla and Kevin both silent moral support so they know that we are totally behind them and have their backs while they take 3 minutes. And by doing this, they are going to get bonus participation marks that will be tacked on to their final grade. So this is, I just think given what we're going to ask them to do, I'm going to just, when they get that final grade, I just might add another percentage or two to that final grade for what you're about to do. Okay? Because this is serious, heavy participation and it's intense. Go ahead and in the clearest English you can. Oh, I can make this really tough. But that means you have to think. That's it. I want you in 3 sentences, no more, to tell us what the critical takeaway is today from this class. And if you have to rewrite it, that's okay. Just take your hand and delete. Rub it off. You're rewriting 3 lines in English, takeaway for today. And you have our silent support. And we're going to watch them as they do this.
Do we have to get both of them up on there, or is it only one that can be shown up there?
There's only one. I'm afraid I can't get Kayla. I will try again with Kayla. I'm trying. Did you see her? Oh, okay. Then because something, I'll try again. Okay. Good point, Kevin. Get writing. Okay, you're right. Because then let me try it. Something to do with the. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna leave that for now. I know that our stream is safe because I see it here. So I haven't killed the YouTube live stream. It's right here. So these guys are earning their bonuses right now in front of you. And it has to be 3 clear sentences that everybody could use when they review this class in the notes. And each of them is going to write something a little bit different, which tells you something about perspective as well. Take as much time as you need. I can give you up until 1:45. So you've got about 4 minutes. And for those of you in the cosmos, well, if you want to earn your participation marks and not put a discussion post up today, then I'd like you to do the same right now in the live chat. Go ahead. Do you know what I'm asking you to do in the cosmos? Let's see if you understood my instructions. Right now on YouTube, if you go to the YouTube recording, it looks like I'm looking down at you. You are little horizontal icons. Well, you can see it up there. Okay, so for all the asynchronous students watching the recording, this will look like I'm kind of talking to you. So, Shamim Smith, if you want your 5 out of 5, in 3 sentences, you do not just make me cry. You cannot go to ChatGPT and ask for 3 sentences. You have to do this from your own head. What is the takeaway today? In 3 really well-written sentences, what is the takeaway? Okay. Oh, good. Kevin. Good. Kayla's going. Yep. If you need to make another slide, Kayla, to fit in, go ahead, okay? As long as we have 3 sentences. It doesn't have to fill 1 slide. You can shift it. Yep. Ready to go. And for all of you to get your 5 out of 5, go ahead to the discussion board now and put your question there, and you'll walk out of here today 5 out of 5, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, Shamim, do you want to say something?
Yes, Professor. I wrote
Wow.
something like just 3 sentences.
Sure.
It's so simple, like whatever came in my thought. Like first question: do we still proud of ourselves by exploiting others? First question. And first, like before that thought came in my mind with the start of the lecture, that slavery is not abolished yet; it's changed the form. Because when you discuss about the Congo, and I wanted to share this information, still going on there. So, and what can we do to remove this stain as a human being?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, okay. First, Shamim, I've noticed that you've come to the class again today, and you've spoken, and you've been really engaging in the class lately. That's great. I want to commend you for that, and your contributions. And so, what I'd like you to do is what you just said. Could you write that clearly in the live chat? Now?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead and then let me see what you write.
Okay.
And we're at 1:45 now, so I want to end the class shortly, but I want to make sure that Kayla and Kevin have the time. They're almost done. And I want to make sure you have the time to enter into the live chat as well. So everyone, we're just going to run a little. Can we run 5 more minutes? If you have to go, it's okay. You can go. You will not be punished. You won't lose any marks. But I want to just make sure that those who are doing the heavy lifting right now, Kayla and Kevin, have time to finish. But I'm aware that some of you may have other commitments and you may have to go. Okay, so you can. No problem. And let's see. And I will save everything. And let me get my glasses. Here. Yes. That's the last one. Do I not put the discussion board up yet? I'll do it on the weekend. Okay, sorry. You know what you can do is, okay. I'm just going to be, since I'm doing a little, fine stick handling today with the students, and everybody's getting a little bit different stuff. I'm going to say, to be fair, here's how it's going to work today, class 10. Kayla and Kevin are getting their extra bonuses for this, for sure. That's already been decided. The live chat ones will get their 5 out of 5 if they put their summary of the takeaway. And for those of you here who are planning to go to the discussion board, because the discussion board is not yet done, i.e., that I haven't posted it, I'm going to say to all of you, the discussion board will be up and ready this weekend. But when you leave, you will all get 5 out of 5 as you leave. But you still have to post your question before next week. Okay? But I'm going to record it as this weekend when I do the marks that everybody here, and you're all on board, so I know you're here, everybody gets 5 out of 5. Okay? So I just think that if I was almost prepared to say, I'll give you the 5 out of 5, you leave, and you don't have to put a question there at all, but then that's just a bit too nice. Okay? That fair? Okay. And I'm going to come and say that. I'm going to say that. It looks like Shamim, who's really, yeah, she's got her 5 out of 5. Way to go. Have a great week. And I'll see you for class 11. We start with the 20th century next week. It gets really interesting. And I'll try and get the team activities going anyway. See you next week.
Thank
Okay.
you for allowing us to go in depth about that. I think it is really important.
I wish I
really-
could have shown you so much more, but I think you get a general idea of what
No,
we're
I-
dealing with here. It's a terrible moment in
no, it's
history.
horrible.
The transatlantic slave trade.
But I'm just
Yeah.
glad that we can actually go so in depth with what's more or less a kids movie and go like this one spot.
That's right. All
could
of you
be
right.
So much more important.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Even Zootopia, they
Oh
touched
my-
on racial bias in their movies as well, and they did it fantastically well.
Was it kind of whitewashed though? Did it feel a bit sanitized?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I might be a little biased in my own opinion, but I still think it's good that they're at least touching on the subject.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and how it can almost paralyze a society.
Mm.
And even something that Ballard has said,